Welcome back, listener. You are listening to the Friday Council, your home for free thought and purposeful discussion on our human condition and all interesting aspects of modern living. If you share in our desire for new ideas and self-improvement, relax your body and contemplate alongside us. Now on the Friday Council. Welcome back. Daniel introduction today to the Friday Council, episode 31. It's April at the moment. Easter weekend. Everyone's doing well, I assume.
Yep, doing well.
I am. Yes, nods from David. Today, get straight into it. Today, the topic was inspired off an interaction I had with some neighbours across the way. Real long story short, these are the neighbours. On a previous episode, we had to cut the podcast because we heard screaming and a big domestic N-words, F-bombs being dropped. This is the neighbours. These are the neighbours that I had the interaction with, affectionately referred to by the neighbourhood as the crackheads. But long story short, as it turned out, they were being evicted the other day, and I went round. I saw what was going on. They asked me if I could deliver some things to their emergency accommodation.
Were you rubbernecking, or were you just like, I'm here for
No, I was like, it seemed like good vibes over there, so I thought, give him a nod, give him a what's up, and then he approached me and asked if I could drop some things off to their emergency accommodation for them. He was offering me all kinds of money. Turns out they were very warm, welcoming people, very lovely. Should never judge a book by its cover. It's a prime lesson in that. But the lady there, the mum, mentioned that all the drama at that house kicked off with one flatmate one boarder that they welcomed in out of the goodness of their own hearts. This is from her side of the story. And then this lady started attracting all these gang members and drug dealers and all these nasty characters. And from there, it just turned to shit.
Right.
And she said, "Yeah, that's what you get for opening your heart up and being nice, kind to strangers." And I thought that's kind of funny you say that, because I was feeling the exact same thing with you guys on that day going over. I said, how much can I trust these people? You know, they were asking me, hey, would you be able to drop off our TV? Like, I can come with you now. I see you have a ute. Would you be willing to, like, I'll come with you and we can drop it off together? And so obviously you go through your head like, they could chef me up in the car.
How do I have boundaries here? Say no.
No, but yeah, off the vibes of them, I was like, no, these people seem trustworthy actually. Like, and just in a few seconds, you can tell straight away.
Okay.
And so I was thinking about opening up like that, and it turned out to be a real fruitful, real wholesome interaction with them. I was like, if I was just super closed off and made up, it could have been real easy to make up some excuse like, oh, sorry man, can't work car, or got guests over. We literally had partner's mum turn up just as I'd started interacting with them, so I had a reasonable out. But long story short, ended up with a great interaction, and I was just thinking about the cost and trade-off of opening up and trusting sometimes strangers, sometimes close family members, and that obviously leaves you open to get hurt or taken advantage of, as the case with the neighbour letting that other lady in, or me even. A fruitful interaction with them, and I was just thinking, it seems like that vulnerability leads you to be able to connect with other people, which is ultimately what we all want. And as a side we can talk about later, I think that's one reason for the uptick in other drug uses other than alcohol these days, is it makes people feel connected and possibly.
Well, I think that's what did you just exclude alcohol?
No, other than like typically the drug use would have been just alcohol back in the day, and now it's kind of burgeoning out into many.
I think that's also a big driver of why people use alcohol. I think alcohol is kind of the number one drug for that.
For connection? Makes you feel
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because people can't, and I can speak from personal connection. I used to be very sort of closed off. I could have conversations, but I wouldn't be very revealing. But if I was drunk, we open my heart out way more, sort of thing. I think that's a big problem for people all around the world, but as we know, a big problem in particular in New Zealand, especially young people. It's the thing that the glue in friendships, relationships, because people can't open up without it. And it's a crutch. So I think that's a really good example And I used to hate that because, I say, when I would get drunk, I would be very open, and then the next day I was like, oh my God, I can't believe like I said that. Felt like all this guilt and anxiousness and
Yeah. So it's kind of wasn't you actually doing it. You were being led by the
artificial
spirit,
yeah,
the alcoholic spirit.
Artificial. And as I say, I'm on the fence with this. I've said this before. Sometimes I think when I'm drunk, that's the real me, and then I went through a phase where actually, no, I don't think I am. Now I'm like, I think it might be to an extent. It's still artificial, but I do think, I'm much better now when I'm sober at having proper, being a bit vulnerable, being open. So I think, I did always long for that, and then I went through a phase like, nah. But anyway.
Yeah, I think it's a good part of growing up as well, is learning to not recognizing that it can be a crutch.
I think,
doing it manually, naturally yourself,
and
organically.
I think that's a massive problem in New Zealand because it's so common. I think, this is one area where America might get things right. It seems much rarer for young people, like 16-year-olds, to be drinking in America, because I don't know if it's solely because their drinking age is 21 or whether it's a cultural thing. It still happens, but it seems much less common. Whereas in New Zealand, like 70-80% of people are drinking by that. Making those numbers up, but based on what I saw, at least 70% of kids are drinking alcohol by the time they're 16 and getting slammed. I mean, it makes me sick thinking about what I used to do, like getting from about the age of 16 onwards. I would say 2 out of 3 weekends, every weekend, I'd be drinking on a Friday and Saturday night, getting hammered on both nights, especially as I got a little bit older. And it used to be super fun, but I think that permanently damaged my brain. I'm very confident that my reward system is screwed up because of that blasting I did when my brain was still developing. I feel the same way
about porn, to be honest. But that was a pretty immediate tangent. So what
but I think
talk about anyway,
because I think it's a very important. Because
it's relevant.
Alcohol makes it easy to be vulnerable and because you don't care.
Yeah.
But then what happens when the alcohol goes away? So
what do you reckon, Nav? Do you have any thoughts on just being vulnerable and opening yourself up to potential betrayal and hurt?
I think just naturally as Kiwis, like I can't speak for every single Kiwi, it's a very narrow-minded way of thinking. So I don't know, maybe it's just me, but growing up, like our neighbours, you're talking about your neighbours. Neighbours when I was living with my parents, we knew who they were. I mean, I probably counter maybe less than 5 times I've gone over. I think one was kicking a ball over the fence. Once I went over with my dad because we needed some soldering thing to fix. And he had a soldering iron. So those sort of things. But generally, they're your neighbours. You know they're there. You could probably rely on them if you were going away. Let them know you're going away, sort of thing. But
feed the cat.
You don't feed the cat. I think luckily my wife, she's more of a social person than I am, but we made a habit, I made it a thing that when we moved into our house we just bought, that she would introduce herself. And I talked to the neighbours both. One of them on one side, lovely people. You guys obviously saw them yesterday. They're great. They're great. Then at the back we've got a bunch of 4 guys lords who just drink every weekend. It seems like
it's a good spread. People.
But it's also that any time, this morning you could hear music playing at 6 in the morning. It's have they gone to bed? Are they or are they just starting? 4-day bender.
I think interesting point, touching on neighbours. I think it's a big one. I don't think a lot of people have close relationships with their neighbours.
No,
but I think it's because both parties are scared to make the first move and take it to the next level. So I think this is in general, not just neighbour. I think this is people in general. I think everyone or nearly everyone wants to have deep, meaningful connections, but it's both parties like, oh, I don't want them to think I'm
Yeah,
weird.
you're like tiptoeing.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
I don't
So,
wanna be cringe,
yeah, we better
is
just
a
talk
big
about
one.
the weather and
Yeah, as a thing. Oh, yeah, it's raining now. So
yeah. So it's just, I
Yeah.
think everyone is scared to make the first move, and we've kind of like talked about this with like phone calls and stuff. Oh yeah, like just the first move.
It's a tick for embracing cringe. I think
Yeah,
it comes out
yeah,
like, I
yeah.
don't want to be cringe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
weird,
I think.
but if you embrace
Yeah,
it,
like
it's always
and
good.
I'll give a perfect example of that. When I asked to come to Kate's party, and I got rejected, like that's like, oh fuck, like I'm such a retard for like putting my. But that, I'm like, no, actually, it's all good. Like if
Yeah,
I just
so
keep
I'd be
doing
like,
that,
oh,
yeah,
cool.
if I just keep doing that, I'll get invites to these things eventually.
Yeah.
So you just have to like put yourself out there. But that's an example because I was really hesitant to ask because I'm like, if she says no, I'm gonna feel like an absolute moron. And I did, but then I overrode. I'm just like, no, that's all good. Like,
Yeah.
no one will actually be thinking that I'm a retard.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Ultimately, it's down to you whether you feel like a moron or not.
Yeah.
Or if you're just like,
And
I don't care.
I think
The
this is
situation's the same.
maybe the one thing that this the what's that? What do they call the community? The dating gurus that pickup artists.
Pick up
Yeah.
artists.
I think that's a very toxic industry, but I think it's the one thing they get right is they talk about getting rejected. They say if you just go out and ask 100 girls in a day, you'll get numbers, and also you'll get desensitized to like getting rejected.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very good lesson in there
Yeah.
because I still struggle with it, but I'm definitely getting better at like being willing to put myself out there, get rejected. So be it. Next time, yeah.
That's a good point. That may very well be the only good thing they get right. That community.
I think that is probably.
You
Yeah.
mentioned like talking about the neighbours, and we're talking about vulnerability, which is essentially trusting other people with your like feelings. You know, your trust. Opening up is the same as kind of trusting them with your open heart or whatever you want to call it, and that often leads to, like in the case with neighbours or mind direction or whatever, sometimes you can get backstabbed, yes, but other times it fosters this like epic relationship, and the feeling of, especially neighbours because they're so close all the time, is like indescribably good. I imagine it's kind of like trying to describe, like if you haven't experienced it, like a good like net safety net community, it'd be trying to explain like an orgasm to someone who's never had sex. It's like it feels so like
it
deep
does.
down good.
I think as I say, it's not something that I've been good at, but it's something I'm working on. I think especially with you two being much more vulnerable, open, and it's like the best feeling ever. I think like that.
It's cathartic.
It's cathartic, but I feel like I'm most happiest when I'm sitting here talking about deep things. Like it's like I could do this all day.
Yeah.
So
and it took a bit of overcoming some cringe.
it did.
Not only for us, but then recording it as well. For me, anyway.
Yeah.
I felt super cringe about it, but it's all good.
There's a couple of things that I have popped to mind. Kind of like when you say, for example, you're starting a new class or whatever, and there's those icebreaker like intros where you like say two things that are true and one that's a lie, like those sort of things. They seem very cringe at the time, but then it's also like, well, you kind of need these ice, because if you're in a new environment, everyone's new. Like there might be like an extrovert out there who like glues the room together or is really good at like connecting people, but for the most part, like you're just shy and like no one wants to like make that step. And as same like going to church that I go to, like it seems most services we have, they're like, oh, say hello to the person next to you. It's like, well, you don't have to, but it's always like a good thing of encouragement. It's like meet someone new, because what it takes is like a seed to start, and then once you get going, it's like
it's a really interesting example. I remember that from going to church. I don't know if they do it in non-Catholic church, but when you do communion or before, I can't remember if you do it before or after, where you like shake hands with the person next to you. And then there's always like a real buzz after that. You can tell there's like a moment. You can tell like the energy and the level and the building has been raised. I think there's a real like
buzz
you
say like peace be
with you. Peace be with you, and then you
shake
and
hands,
then you can just like feel
it's like a deep community.
There's a raise in energy.
But what you're saying is it's basically the same as the pickup artist. It's like just get used to people. I think a lot of people assume, myself included, a while ago, that you're just like naturally good at it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it should just, if it doesn't come naturally to you, then
No,
damn, I just like lucked out. Like didn't get lucky.
It's definitely a practice skill.
Yeah.
I think for the people that it comes to naturally, it's probably the way that they were nurtured when they were young. I think their parents were probably socialites and they were exposed. Quite somewhat of a good example of this is my neighbour across the road. They have the little,
ones that hit my car there.
No. they're long gone anyway, but it's the ones next door to them anyway. They've got a young girl, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years old, and I went for a walk the other day, and I was coming home, and she's outside of her mum, and she yelled out, like, "Hello!" And like that's an example of like being socialised.
Yeah.
She's like very comfortable, like yelling out.
Yeah.
Whereas we've all seen like shy young people, they get scared. I've seen that in some of my nieces and nephews when they're a little bit younger. They were very sort of reserved. Especially, I remember my nephew Leo, when he'd come to like family events, it'd take him like a while to warm up. At the start, he'd be very reserved, and then as he got comfortable, he'd warm up.
He'll warm up right as everyone's about to leave.
Yeah. So an example of her being very comfortable, just yelling out hello, and I've never talked to her before. She's probably like seen me, but very comfortable.
But, also your reaction to that will determine her. Like,
and
her parents can only do so much. If she says like hello to you and you completely ignore it, or like do like give her like some scary look or something, she's going to be less likely. So that's where like it takes a village to raise a child comes in. It's like,
but I think
role to play
you're right. But I think people where it appears that it's been natural, I suspect it's the way that they were raised when they were young. They were probably exposed and just nurtured in a certain way that made them very comfortable with people. And then so then when they're 20 and they're the extrovert socialite, it appears, this guy's just got the gift of the gab, but it was probably something to do with the way he was raised, exposed to people, all of that.
It does really seem like kids are naturally better at it though, and it seems like
to an extent.
In general, I might be generalising, but it might be getting socialised out of us.
They're a shy kids, so it's easy to be like, I know that the example of the open kid, but there was definitely also very shy kids. I remember
as a population,
my
I mean,
niece
like
and
children
nephew
as a
are like that.
population.
Do you remember? I won't say his name. He's got an Irish name at primary school, and he'd start crying, and like you'd like talk to him, and he'd start crying.
Pussy.
His name starts with a C.
Nah.
There's this dude.
I don't remember.
But
Camus.
like Seamus. O'Connell was the last name. He'd just cry because he's so shy and anxious. You'd be like, bro, like, and I remember he'd like never stand up for himself. Like,
I actually went to one of his birthday parties once. It was actually fine, but
I
think he got a bit older.
I think it's all environment. He's probably comfortable in his own home, but at school he was super shy and anxious. And I remember like I can't remember the exact scenario, but the teacher I think like accused him of something, and the teacher was actually wrong, but he was too like afraid to like stand up for himself, and then he just started crying instead when he actually wasn't in the wrong. Kids can be better at it, but there certainly can be kids who are equally super shy and reserved.
I've come across like a multitude, like my niece and nephew, and they're a bit older. They seem to be fine, but like going over to see my sister, my nephew would just hide behind her leg for like most of the time, and it takes so long to come out of his shell.
I remember I've been over at Nav's parents' house when they've been around. They're a bit reserved when they saw me. Who's this guy?
They come up the stairs like kind
real
of like
hesitant.
they're like,
oh,
what's going on? But they don't want to stay there.
It seems. I think my mother's a teacher aide, and dad's always just been naturally good with kids.
Got AIDS.
My mum's a teacher, HIV positive, teacher aide, and so I think from them I've gotten relatively good. Able to interact with kids, if you know what I'm saying. That was articulated really poorly, but I think generationally it seems maybe even adults don't really know how to bring kids out of their shells often.
Probably not.
So it's like an awkward first date. We're like, no, but it's with a child. First date, but with a child, where no one wants to like initiate. But once you do, then the kid opens up. You're like, hey, what's that little toy car or something?
I find myself even in situations of like closer friendships, still struggling to I don't know, ask for help, or
Yeah,
be open and vulnerable,
Yeah.
because like maybe there's been times I've done that and been shut down, and it's like I'm just gonna start closing myself off. But like yesterday, the day before, I needed help unloading firewood. I was like, well, I mean, what's the worst? They'll just say no.
Yeah.
Like, I still have to do it anyway, but at least if you guys were keen, which is great. It made it way easier, and then everyone got to hang out.
Enjoyable.
So it's like,
Yeah, it was enjoyable.
it allows you to be open, and like I think it's more about yourself. The fact that you can't ask, as opposed to like the other person saying no.
It's a funny one, like
point.
that. Yeah, it's something that I struggle with, being the initiator. I've never been the initiator. So if you invite me to something, if I get invited to pay, I'll be there, but I'll never ask. And it's something I've started doing, asking. But it's a weird one, because in your mind you're like, if you're not getting asked, you're not welcome. But I don't know. It's just one of those.
Someone has to ask.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone,
It's such a paradox almost, because I don't know how to explain it.
Well, if everyone was like you, or like, not initiating, then nothing would ever happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously,
so it's a real tough one. I think you just have to get comfortable at asking, be the one initiating.
Yeah.
And I think if you become the initiator, eventually that will be, I don't know, I can't, it's a tongue twister word, reciprocated.
Mm-hmm.
There you go, reciprocated. I think I got that right. Yeah, eventually. Yeah, so that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to when I get my own place, whether that be rented or owned, is being the one to initiate.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier when you have.
Yeah, because I'm always down to do stuff. Like, I love that game night we had at your house, and then I'm like, we should do this again, but it hasn't happened. Whereas if I had my own place, I'll be like, guys, where it be game night, just dinner, like, come over, come chill. Yeah, so that's something I'm really looking forward to when I get my own place, is being the one. Then I'll be I can initiate.
I think I don't know if it's just me, but I have a willingness to be open in certain circumstances, and other times it's just I don't have the need or desire for it. I think so. To paint that the best way, like weeknights, because you're working, it's like I'm more inclined to just be like, nah, I just want to finish work, go home, do my own thing. But when it comes to like the weekend, it's like, I'm more open and more keen to do things, knowing that like I don't have to work. But that's not saying like, no, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to be known as that person. It's like, nah, he's just not keen on the weeknights, because then you won't get invited to things. But or you're just known for like, he's just never going to come. But like, I think you still need to have a balance, because if you're open and vulnerable all the time to things, or like helping all the time, you might also be painted as like, oh, that's the guy who like, I could ask him at any time. That's great, like that someone's willing to do stuff. But then if it's abused, which if you're with the right people, it's not likely to happen. But there is that possibility that someone could just walk over you and expect things of you. And that happened once at my workplace. We had like you'll probably know who it is, but we had like this group page where we'd swap shifts. Like, if part-time work, I can't do this, can someone else pick it up? And for some reason she like couldn't post in the group, and she'd always be like, oh, can you post like to do this, someone to do the shift for me? And I just became a middleman. It was like, and one I was like, nah, like just message someone directly. And she like went off at me. It was like, well, I'm just like, I'm not here to be walked over.
Yeah, that's stupid.
And then so I stopped talking to the person, but it was like,
yeah.
It
Well, it doesn't even.
It's all I am to you.
You wouldn't even have to get taken advantage of necessarily. If it is all down to you. That's a real good point. Because if you have like 7 good friends and they just ask you like once a week, it's not them abusing you if they each ask you once a week to help out, but that's you every single day of your week. Yeah,
totally.
So it's not even, doesn't even have to be intentionally abusing the relationship. It could just be your decision to overextend yourself. So that's a good thing to remember.
I agree. You have to have boundaries, as we talked about before, but I think I can't think of an example of this person off the top of my head, but we've all known or can envision that, like, I think it's generally a female, like a mum, who's always the helper. She's always and I think that's very like comforting, like that being that figure, like being drawn towards that figure. As I say, I can't think of it, and I feel like I've met someone who's like this, and I just can't. But yeah, they're always the one helping people, always coming over to vent and stuff like that. I think, yeah, I guess that depends on, I think, the person who's doing the helper. I think, yeah, they're probably wired a certain way where they just enjoy. It's kind of probably like a therapist or someone.
Like volunteering, like
yeah,
kind of. Well, maybe not. Like I think there's. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut.
No, it's all good. Probably not articulating it very well. I think there's people who enjoy being the one always helping. Perhaps that's a good way of putting it. Maybe I've seen it in movies or TV more than in real life. I feel like maybe not the best example, but Cheryl off Outrageous Fortune.
She's never watched it, but yeah.
Okay,
she's the main mum.
Yeah. She's people always coming to her.
Yeah,
she's an open door policy. Like, come over whenever you want. Get vent, whether it be a tangible help or just getting shit off your mind. Yeah, there's that very motherly figure who's the open door policy. Come over whenever you want, whenever you've got an issue. And I think there's certain people who get a kick of being the helper.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of innate as well. It's to some point they just might have it, it feels good to help other people.
Yeah.
I think we're wired that way.
Yeah, I for the most part I like helping people, but then there's also a time and a place for it. I notice myself, if I'm in a new environment where there's a lot of new people, so for example, like parents-in-law are hosting family thing and there's lots of extended family, it's like I'm more likely to just give me something to do because I don't want to have to like socialize with a whole heap of people. So I'd rather be out like cutting some veggies or something because then I know like I'm safe here.
Yeah.
But like that's just me.
That's
I think environment is very important.
Environment, yeah,
because I really don't enjoy my family get-togethers unless I'm drunk, because then
that's probably also very relatable.
And my sister that I've got a close relationship with is exactly the same. She doesn't enjoy family gatherings unless she's drunk, because then that dumps you down. Because I don't have anything in common basically with my family, with the exception of my one sister that I do. So it's very hard to be in an environment where people are talking about rubbish. They're complaining about politics. They're complaining about
they don't know about.
Yeah, they're complaining about money, the economy, their job. They're talking about the drama. It's just like rubbish. It's like, I just have no, and then that makes me very reserved and very negative, because it's just like this is horrible.
Yeah,
like listening.
And they're like, look at David over there. Why'd you come over here? Stop being a downer, David.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't want to.
Yeah, so
you're talking about downer stuff.
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
So being in the wrong environment, that makes me not want to be vulnerable. Makes me very negative and just like reserved. But if I'm in the right environment, maybe it was a small environment, but that game night they had at NAV, like people were talking about, we're on all, on the same wavelength, talking about stuff that interests us, having fun, and very cheerful, very open. I guess I wasn't super vulnerable that night, but conversation didn't get that, but
more than a family get together.
Yeah. And so in those environments too, it kind of can harvest an opportunity to have like controversial, like it's all different opinions. It's like you can talk about that and still get along and disagree. But if it's like your family and you have different opinions, you're just like, I'm not talking about this anymore.
Yeah, and my family with different opinions and stuff like that, it's not that they would be like just angry about having, but it's almost like I feel like my opinion isn't valued. So if I
just get brushed over.
Yeah, it'd be like, and I've had this where I'm like mid-conversation and someone will, like, you can see that they're distracted, they're not even listening to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think they just think, he's the youngest one in the family, he's a dumbass, doesn't know anything about life. And it's like,
I noticed that too.
Yeah.
I noticed that too.
It's so disrespectful and I hate it. It makes me very angry.
Maybe it's a habit, like, thing to pick up on, like, I think maybe I understand it now, but talking to someone and you can sense that they're not interested, their mind's not in the thing. It's like, it's a hard thing, because I remember when I was trying to ask Dad for like help with, I was like talking about like interest rates, I think it was, because it was a new concept to me, buying a house, and I was like asking him a question, but you could see his mind was like automatically like, well, this is like how I did it, but it's not what I'm asking you. It's like I'm wanting.
I want to bounce ideas.
Yeah, I want to bounce. Like it was just
And
like, you're not even listening.
Yeah, that's the ironic thing. Like in my family, in particular, with my parents, is I hear them talking about things like interest rates, investments, and stuff like that, and they don't have a clue about it because they're, the typical boomer where they have investment broker or whatever. They don't understand. They just get told what to do, and it's like, why aren't you coming to me? Like, that I'm very knowledgeable of this stuff.
It's your job, basically.
Yeah. That's it. It's like you guys never come to me to not even, doesn't have to be for advice, but just to like talk about. So like, where have you parked your money and stuff like that? And what do you think about the market? It's like I know so much about it, and it's just like, oh, he's just this, and they know, like, because it pays the bills. Like they know I've got money.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you like watching the news and like blabbling? Like you could come to me and I could give you some insight into what's going on. Yeah. And I can explain that. I hear with the OCR going up the other day that that's going to cause massive like pain and stuff. It's like, well, no, not really, because interest rates may go up a little bit more, but it's already largely been baked in. Yeah. So at the moment, like no interest rates have changed because term deposits, 1 year term deposits already at like 6% and stuff like that. So OCR going to 5.5 hasn't made much of a difference because interest rates are forward looking anyway. It's a bit of a tangent, but it's like, I could explain this stuff to you like way better than listening to a 30-second news snippet, but they just don't value my opinion.
It's almost like
it's frustrating.
There's I'm not saying a class of people. There's a certain kind of people who just live off like just headlines like they don't understand. Yes, it's like, I think maybe in a world of like TikTok and stuff or just news articles, it's like you'll see a headline and people such and Trump's been arrested. It's like, okay, well, what does that actually mean? Like, is he?
They weren't even the TikTok generation.
And stuff like, again,
I think it gets blamed a lot. Like TikTok and the young kids get blamed for like clickbait titles. It was like, you ever seen? But clickbait titles were around when our parents were younger parents. They would be clicking on them. Yeah,
of course. They're suckers for it.
That's what the news is clickbaits.
And again, like stuff like, we've been over this before, but like company profits and stuff, and the idea that getting ripped off. And again, I could explain like profit margins, net, all that sort of, and actually not getting ripped off, or the share price will be going up when it's actually going down. So I think, anyway, but it's a bit of a tangent, but just like make that relevant. Yeah, I'm very comfortable, or getting very comfortable at being open, vulnerable with people who value my opinion, value my time. I'm not comfortable being vulnerable with people who don't value my opinion or time. That's the way to make that very relevant.
That's a good point.
And so I've talked about that with my sister, because she's like, I told her like, I'm quite good in group settings, and she's like, but you're not, like, you're very reserved in the family. And I'm like, and I explain, it's because I don't feel my opinion or my time is valued. So that makes me very reserved. But if I'm in a group where people listen to me, bounce back ideas and stuff like that, I'm very open, as you can see. I can talk all day long.
Yeah. Sometimes
that's
too
much.
Yeah, so no, it's fair. I'm the first to say, like, when I've said it before, when I sometimes stay here after and I say, just tell me to go if I'm blabbing too much. So I'm happy to admit.
Just for context, before we started this, David had been talking for about 10 minutes before we were ready to go.
Yeah, so I'm very self-aware that I can talk, and I say, if I'm talking too much, tell me to shut up, tell me to go.
We will. I want to ask you guys, keeping it on topic, have you guys ever, do you have any personal experiences and therefore maybe lessons of being betrayed after being vulnerable and trusting someone? Perhaps you maybe it was a stranger or like a kind of acquaintance, and then they betrayed you.
I
didn't pay you back.
Got a really good example.
They
really good
cheated
example.
On
you David style.
When I've told the story before, and Nav knows it well. When I knew this girl, and I had a sports betting account in her name, and we cut a deal with you, where I gave her X percentage of the winnings.
Very incriminating of yourself.
There's nothing illegal about it.
Oh, good.
There's nothing illegal about it.
It was a mutual.
Yeah, it was a beneficial.
Agreed.
I agree. I can't remember the percentage. Probably like 10% of the winnings.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it came time to withdraw the money, she's I'm taking half of it. You don't need this money. You've already got money. It's like, what? What? Like, that's not how the world works. and this is like 2016, so I actually didn't have that much money relative to her. I probably had like 10 grand or something. But it's like, I can't retire.
Yeah, so you trusted her.
Yeah, and she's like, yeah, you don't need this money. It's like
She didn't even end up taking half of it, did she?
no, I think I managed to talk her back down, but that was the end of that. Like, there's no way I can trust you again after that. You've tried to
Her
pull
name almost rhymes with karma, so
Really?
almost. Yeah.
almost. So
so that's a really concrete example
Yep.
of, and there's just like no way I don't think you can mend that after,
that's-
because like that.
And that reminds me of the other example of a friend who used to work for a shoe shop.
Yeah, that's another
That's
great
a
example.
great example.
Yeah.
So I try to remember exactly what it had. So she worked for a shoe place, and she was getting me like a pair of shoes. So she get it discounted. So I was
Sure.
like, oh yeah, sweet. I think she was up in Wellington at the time, so she was getting it from another store there.
Okay.
And so I gave her some money to like, get it for me because she had agreed upon it.
Before she got them.
Before she went away,
Yeah.
So I'd given her the money,
Yeah.
and I think she may have spun a massive yarn like, oh, sorry, I wasn't able to get the shoes for you.
No.
Oh, you might be able to actually explain it better than I can.
She said that she got the shoes.
Okay, yeah.
And then she said that she was sending them by courier to Nav, to Wellington.
That's right. Yeah.
And then I can't remember exactly how it went, but probably after like a week, Dav's like, they're still not here. And then she just kept like,
doubling down on it.
Must have got lost. And Nav's like, well, can you give me the tracking number? That's a simple, And she's like, no, I'm not giving you the tracking number. It's my courier. As though some like private information, and it was clearly a lie. It got to the point where she's like, "I'll buy you the shoes and I'll give you the money," because it's an ego thing. She went too far.
I said that. I was like, okay, fine. Like,
she obviously never bought the shoes, and she spent the money when she was in Wellington.
Right.
She just,
It's a clear example of
from then, like,
abused.
that relationship and friendship just completely.
And it's the sort of thing where if she'd just been honest, it would have been like, who cares? I understand.
Sweet
just been like, I'm sorry, like, I drank too much alcohol, I spent the money, I didn't get the shoes, I'll pay you back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Cool.
Would've been
Like,
fine.
respect. Like, you had fun, I understand shit happens.
It was the fact she had doubled down on it, like dug her heels in the sand, and then from there, and that's like, it's kind of a shame because I'd known her growing up from like primary school, from year 4 up until year 12, year 13 or something. Yeah. And in that instant, it was like, nah, that's a massive red flag for me.
Yeah, it's just
that's where it ends. That's probably one of the most prime examples of like you've really like shot yourself down.
Can you learn anything from that though? Because you couldn't tell. Like, she seemed like a trustworthy person.
It's
just bad luck.
I don't know that you can learn anything from it, because you could be like stoic, again, probably not the right way to use that word stoic, but stoic in the sense of reserved, and shut yourself and be like, I'm never lending anyone money again, I'm never entrusting anyone with money again. You could do that, and I think people do that, but then you're shutting yourself off. I think you just have to accept that if you're willing to be open, vulnerable, trust others, that a small percentage of the time, hopefully, you're going to get screwed. And that's the cost of doing business. That's a good way of putting it. The cost of doing business is a small percentage of the time you're going to get screwed, but the doors and connections and rewards that you get for being open and vulnerable, I think, outweigh being the shut off. I'm never trusting anyone with my money or my opinion or anything again.
Very well said.
It's one of those, for me, like, just growing up, I hate owing people. Money's probably an example. Like, obviously different when you own a house and you owe the bank, or if you've studied your own student loan, like, it's the government's. But the point being is, like, just knowing that I owe someone, it's like, no, if someone pays for a meal when we're in a group, my first is like, what's your bank account number? I'll transfer you straight away. Like, I think most people are like that. Like, they'll feel like a debt. They'll want to pay back as soon as possible. I think most people are like that. Some more than others. I'm super as well. I hate the idea of owing anyone money, or if somewhat of an example. Last year, I
backed into my brother's car. So what happened is I was coming out of the garage and like he's parked on the driveway. Normally there's never like a car on the driveway, so I just automatic, I just went reverse and backed into it. It's a crappy old car anyway, and it was just like a tiny little dent, but I felt so bad. I'm like, I'll pay for all the repairs, I'll pay for everything. He's like, I don't care, like it's just a little ding on an already like scratched up old car. And I was like, he's just like, $50 will do. I was like, sweet. But like I felt like I had to like repay and do something as soon as possible. So the idea that I've like owe someone something, like I'll be over the top.
It's a good conscience probably. Do you guys reckon, I'm just thinking now, can like the being vulnerable, opening up, and therefore giving your trust, it kind of can be thought about as a form of currency, because if you can be betrayed, it almost brings to mind like you've lost, like you've like loaned them almost your trust. It's valuable. It's definitely valuable. And it can be taken away and like given. Kind of like a currency.
I think there's a couple of examples. I think it can be. For me, it depends on what the situation or how much of a betrayal it is. Because I don't know, people make mistakes. If like the example of the shoes and the courier thing, like for me that was it, because like at that moment I knew this is like the real you is how I've portrayed it. But then like another example is like you're in primary school and Nav, who do you like? And then you tell someone, I'm not going to tell anyone, like your secret's safe for me.
Yeah, it's like a currency.
Exactly.
Is a currency.
It's a huge thing. And then a week later they're like, Nav likes like they're telling everybody. It's like like I probably just wouldn't tell that person something again, but I'm not going to hold it against them, because now like as you get older you realize those sort of things are just dumb.
I think you just have to get comfortable. I know that exact situation, but with the idea that like people might talk about you and be like, he likes this person, and that can be embarrassing, but if you just like become comfortable with that, it can I think it's just one of those things. If you get comfortable with it can actually be like beneficial, because people are essentially showing you attention. So rather than be like, I can't believe you told your friend that I like this person, just be like, I do like it. Can work. And people talk, like gossiping about you, it can almost, it's like almost a form of attention. Well, it is a form of attention. It's almost a form of endearment. Like people are like, this guy.
People recognize. Recognize its innate value.
But I think that's like probably the most relatable example of people's trust being betrayed is relationships, romantic relationships. I don't think I've ever been specifically betrayed in terms of like someone did a specific thing against me, but I've been in cases, obviously, as we probably all have, where we've liked someone and then they've stopped liking us, and that still feels like a betrayal. Because you start like, it's okay, why are they not texting anymore? Why are they not putting an X at the end of the message more? And so it's like not like a tangible,
everyone's been there.
Betrayment, but it feels like a betrayment. I still remember that. Probably the biggest example of that actually. It was in year 10 when I liked a girl, and she all of a sudden got really stroppy. And I think
know exactly who you're talking about.
And then I remember, like, I think I actually talked to my parents about that, which I'd never do today, but at that time I did, and I was like, she's such a bitch. Like the stereotypical way that a male becomes jaded. All women are bitches.
Egoic.
It's like a defense.
Can't be my fault.
Yeah, exactly. It's a defense mechanism. And I would say that I do have like a lifetime's worth of that happening. Again, it's not actually someone's specifically done something to betray me, but it feels like I've been betrayed, and that has made me quite a bit jaded, where I've just been like, I'm done with dating, I don't date, I do that sort of thing. And
a lot of people feel that way.
But I'll own that. As I say, it's not females' fault, that's my fault. But I watched the movie the other night. I told you guys on Snapchat, 10 Things I Hate About You, and I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't.
But that's a very good movie about being vulnerable, essentially. A great example, there's like a stoic female character in it, and then a guy likes her, and she's like stonewalling him, but eventually she opens up, and you can see And that movie actually had a profound effect on me because it made me like, oh, geez, this is like evoked emotions in me that I didn't know or existed or I thought died like a long time ago. The idea of being vulnerable, relationships, love, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So as I say, that movie really had a profound effect on me.
It's probably I haven't seen it, but I think I remember watching. Have you seen 500 Days of Summer?
No,
Yes,
but
I have seen that.
Yeah, I've seen that like recommended in similar movies.
Where
to it.
it's kind of like ages ago I watched it, where the guy like meets the girl and real common interest, like become really good friends. I don't know if I remember dated and everything, and then one day it's just like it's like going through 500 days,
right? Yeah,
like Summer is the name, and then eventually it's like she just moves on, and then they meet later on, and she's married, she's got another person, and it's like those sort of things where you're like, man, like this was such a good thing, went through all these good experiences together, and then you feel absolutely betrayed. And I think that's a mixture of like long-term relationships and just the nature of like your heart being broken, but those things, as sucky as they are, they actually help build you and build your character into becoming more emotionally,
I think,
steady, or I don't know if that's the
yeah,
best way to
no.
I think talking about love as well, you can get a lot of understanding about these things, vulnerability and connection in general, just reflecting on like the language that we just innately use, like along with love, for example, like you talk about it being tender, like tenderness, which implies like delicate, and it's like you have to be real gentle, and it's like you have to put in a lot of effort, like a flower, you know, it's like beautiful, but you know, it can be destroyed and really easily.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think it's just kind of a side tidbit, but yeah, thinking about just the language that we just use around these words often like imply stuff about their nature as well, which like helps to understand how to work around them. What were you going to say, Dave?
Oh, I was going to say, I think like perhaps the key is you said like children tend to be like better at being open, vulnerable, which I think is true. It's just
general.
General. And like so that movie, because it was based on like last year of high school sort of age, so like 18, it made me like took me back to when I was that age, and then like I was thinking how much more open. I wasn't the most open and vulnerable person for sure, but I had like a much more open lines of communication, and I was just thinking like how easy it used to be to make friends back then. Like you could just add someone on Facebook and message them, hey, random ad, or like, hey, I know you know this person, and like I would never do that today, which it kind of sucks now that I think about it. Like it just used to be so easy to make friends.
That's how my wife and I got talking after we met in person. She just added me and was like, hey, we saw each other at the party, and then that's where we started talking.
And so you married? You could do that at I did that at parties as well, but when I was adding people, I was always wasted. So then the next day I was like, oh God.
Who's
like,
this?
Like, oh. So those, with the exception, there was one or two maybe connections where I did become friends with people through that means. But at school, it was so easy to make friends, so easy to meet girls, and it made me really, I was like, damn, I wish it was still that way. And I think it can be to an extent, like I can put myself out there more. So I think like a key lesson for me is stay youthful, youthful. It's tough to pronounce with braces.
Useful.
Youth, young, stay young, and be spirited, open, all of these things, because I think teenagers, again, there'll be exceptions, but when you're teenagers, you tend to be, as I say, you can just like open up, meet people. Remember like Nav and I, we made like, I think Hannah Nilsson, we just like went up to her in the mall. I think actually it might have been some dude, Alex, I think his name was. It was like he was like sitting with her, and we just became friends. They actually became pretty good friends for a while. It was so easy to make friends.
I don't remember the first encounter, but but I think high school is different because you just knew people who had mutual connections. Yeah. So if you saw someone with someone, you're like, oh yeah, you're such and such's friend, and then it's just easier. Or like maybe that's just because we like where our high school was is literally down the mall, down the road to a mall, and there's another high school next to that mall, and so like people just hang out at the mall after. So
and catching the bus, you just people like Hannah Flasher. Or just people like you just it was so easy to make connections.
It's also easier like when you know
must be a Hannah thing
when it's likely that the other person's also going to be reciprocal in it, because like you're saying when you're an adult, if you don't have anything
people-
in common with them, you're going to shut down.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the fear.
And-
It's like, what if we have nothing in common as an adult?
Yeah.
Like, as an adult, you're diverse. As high school kids, they're all kind of the same. Everyone likes to drink.
Yeah.
Fucked up. But as you diversify as you get older, so there's more chance that you're going to have
Yeah,
nothing in common.
and I think people
But you
are
gotta
just
get used to
more,
rejection.
people are more guarded as an adult. Certainly, I am, and yeah, so it's very hard because I'm starting to think like, geez, I want to be more open, create connections, all the stuff, and it's just like it's very hard to make that first move because I think
You just have to be willing to, like the pickup artists, you just have to be willing to take
exactly.
them out.
And
Turns out we have nothing in common.
Yeah.
I think
Have a good day, sir.
Yeah, there are examples of adults who are, whatever you're going to call them, socialites, who they're magnets to people, and they can just meet new people, and so it is possible. I think it's a bit harder because I think you're working with adults who are on average going to be more guarded and reserved than they were at high school, but it is still possible to
Just what like you were making that joke before, but if you were trying to meet someone and talking to them, and
As an
then
adult?
as an adult, and they like said to me just out of the blue, like, I don't think we've got anything in common, like.
It'd be brutal.
So it'd be brutal, but then I'd probably like walk away from that thing and like, okay, well we don't, like that's fine.
That's true.
But then like I don't know, would I hold it as a thing, this is me, but if depends how they word it. If that we just don't have anything in common, we're just like, no, I don't like what you said. Like,
Very unlikely
but-
that it would ever be vocalized and
It-
that you'd figure that out
Can-
on like the first interaction. Because
Well,
as
Can
an
you-
adult, you'd hopefully have some depth to you that you can't be fully read on the
Can you
first,
imagine if an adult came
Like-
up to you, whether it be a dude or a girl, and they're like, yo, I'm new in town, or even if they don't say it, but like, I just moved house, I'm looking to make some connects, do you want to come over for a dinner or game night? Would you be you'd be like, yeah, actually that'd be kind of sick.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or you'd be like,
I
is this person a murderer?
no.
Are they
Yeah,
gonna
I
do
might-
this?
let's meet in a public place.
I might be a little bit hesitant. Not for that reason, not that I think they're a murderer, just because, as I say, I do struggle with new connections and stuff. But I'll be like, oh, damn, that's pretty cool that I'm like getting an offer. So if you think about that, if you were the one doing that, I think quite a few people would be like, yeah, that'd be sick. Or even, if you wanted to change it, like, yo, do you want to go to the movies?
Yeah.
I'm like, I've got nothing to do. Or like, I'm bored. Do you want to go to a movie? Because it's quite novel. And I think people like having fun. So if someone breaks the monotony of everyday life, be like, yo, do you want to go punting on the Ava?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I'll shout. All right, yeah, fuck yeah. And then they'll be on a buzz, and you'll be able to talk to them and get to know them because they'll be on a buzz sort of thing. So again, I'm just going to have to learn to be the one to initiate those things. But I do think there are a lot of adults out there who would be stoked to have these
There's a guy on
interactions.
TikTok, I can't remember his name. He's Australian, and he does exactly that. He'll go up to people and be like, hey, I'm looking for someone to go skydiving today.
Yeah.
Like, are you keen? And then he'll just get rejected like 5 or 6 times or whatever, in the video anyway. And then someone will be like, yeah, all right. And then it's like these 2 guys just going skydiving, having a sick time. It's like, yeah, that'd be awesome. Like, I'd probably...
Yeah, so
at first you'd be like, oh, this is a bit weird, but then you'd be like, if that was the natural order of life where you just...
it'd be awesome.
It'd be sick.
Yeah. So, I think I'm just going to have to be the one who initiates that. I need to get my own house first because obviously I'm not going to be inviting people back to my parents' house.
That's murderer vibes.
But you could take that to extremes because you can get real quirky with it and be like, imagine just like, yo, do you want to catch a plane to Auckland? Just something super
Those sort of things
novel
have
and
a cost to them.
they
which
do,
is-
but I have the money to do that sort of thing within reason. Doing it every day for the week.
I'm waiting for that invite to. You want to go to Auckland this weekend?
But can you imagine if you did that? You went out to see the CBD or whatever, and you just like, yo, you want to go to Auckland? And if you had a specific event or something to go to, you want to go to Auckland and go to this concert. A few people might be hesitant, and I think they'd be stoked for the offer, but they might be hesitant. Just again, it would be their personal thing because people do tend to be shy and reserved at first. But they'd probably walk away thinking, shit, I should have accepted that because I've been in situations like that where someone has put an offer out and I'm like, oh, think about it, and they're like, fuck, I should have said yes. So I think it's more them than you, but eventually you get someone like, fuck yeah.
Someone who can make that decision.
Yeah,
on the spot.
let's go. Or be like, want to go to Queenstown and go on the what is it, the luge, whatever is big in Queenstown.
Do you want to go to Fergburg?
Yeah, like eventually you would get someone.
Fergburg
And
is
they'd
in
be like,
Queenstown. Well, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I've got a flight ready. Let's go.
and can you imagine like the conversations on the plane like that, because they'd be on such a buzz. They'd be like, oh yeah, I go to uni or whatever, and be like, they'll be opening up because they'll be in such a good mood. So
Oh, well, there's your video idea for your YouTube.
yeah, well, and
channel.
that could be turned
Yeah.
into
Content.
into content. Yeah, so
What do you guys think? How are we doing for time?
Like 50-ish minutes. So
What do you guys think about? We're talking about it being possibly easier as the younger you were, about the link between naivete and openness. Like, is there it's easier when you're
Yeah.
naive, especially with strangers, because you're not thinking about like, oh, is this person gonna? Is it just weird? Or is this person gonna murder me?
it's like the scammer market. Like, you're just naive.
Yeah,
I-
and like
yeah.
the 4-year-old girl that yelled out to you, it's not
Oh,
super
yeah.
common.
Yeah.
She's just naive. You could be a murderer.
yeah, and to use that as an- that's another example. Can you imagine if you did that to your neighbours? Yelled out like, "Hey!" Like they'd probably be like, "That's a little bit weird, but yo,
yeah,
do you want to grab a beer?"
yeah.
Yeah, why not? Again, it just has to be someone has to initiate it, but most
Yeah.
people
I know
would
what you
probably
mean.
be stoked. And with neighbours, there's already like a little icebreaker because they know that you're not a murderer or something.
Yeah.
So, and I think about that with my Romanian neighbours next door, because they seem to be very looking for connection, and they used to invite me and my parents over for dinner and stuff, and my parents would never return the favour. They're like, "Oh, we'll invite you over for dinner sometime," my parents, and then they never did. And
Food is
yeah,
the best.
but so I think
icebreaker.
they've stopped like initiating because they're like, oh, this family's not interested, so yeah, we'll stop.
That's my
Whereas
golden.
I am interested, so
Yeah.
I'm always like, I should just go over to them and be
Just
like,
rock up
yeah.
at their door.
want some
Hey, my
opium?
parents
yeah,
have
like
no
my,
social.
my parents suck, but I think you guys are awesome. I really enjoy these barbecues. Let's do them.
Yeah,
And they're probably like, yo,
food is
for sure.
Hey,
But, yeah.
then though you'll be like, oh, where you off to, David? I'm just going to the neighbours next door. Oh, they didn't invite us.
yeah.
Nah, I just reached
because
out to them.
I'm my own man.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
Now,
So-
food is OP, especially for neighborly interactions.
Yeah, and there's super
any
into
food.
it.
Doesn't have to be baking. Just
Yeah.
like, I
But
have some spare
Just
carrots,
don't
man.
throw it
What's
over
up?
the fence. You've got to actually like
Yeah. Smash through the
Throw
window.
some
from
apples
carrots
over.
through the window.
throw some lemons on their roof.
But yeah, going back to like being younger and naivety could be part of it. Well, I don't know. I just think people tend to be, whether it be whatever, a social construct or just way the brain is wired when you're young. I think you tend to be more open. Yeah, you become more guarded as an adult. I don't know why. I guess it makes kind of sense if you're thinking about it from like an evolutionary standpoint or something. As an adult, you kind of have to be like a guardian, a protector, so you have to be more cautious.
You have
about,
more to lose as well.
Yeah, you have more to lose. So I don't know if it's just a hardwired thing in the brain. Like a defensive mechanism, which would make sense like 1,000 years ago. But I can't tell you the exact reason, but yeah, certainly children and teenagers on average are far more open. It's far easier to make new connections. I just can't believe, like, thinking back how easy it was to make friends, and kind of miss that now that I think about it. But
I mean, I don't have the right answer or the antidote for that, but I think I would think as an adult, if you're really trying to make friends, you just need to look at what you're interested in. It's fine, like hobby groups or subreddits or something. Because I see people, like, particularly in the Christchurch one, which I follow, there's people that are like, oh, hey, we're doing a social event. If you're keen, like, PM me, and they just go out and have dumplings. Well, these guys are just like strangers. It's a bit odd, but that's great.
Yeah, I've seen that with like.
But if you've got interests,
GP
like,
forums,
common
meetups,
interests, it's like, well, that makes it easier because if everything goes pear shaped. Talk about your collection of Nazi just talk about what you're into.
You know, that is a good idea. Yeah. There's certainly solutions, and I say I'm sure there are adults out there who do have like sort of flourishing social lives and regularly have new people coming into their social lives. And I say I've shut myself off from the world in the past few years, and even just since high school, I've largely said to myself, keep people at arm's length, sort of thing. And now something's changed in my brain where I'm like, actually, geez, I do want some more friends. I do want some more connections in my life. Which is a great thing. It's a great thing that I can recognize. That.
You can't really lie to yourself either. You can't kid yourself that you don't.
Yeah, so it's a great thing that at least I can
like
recognize it and work on it.
It's definitely worth it. Like you were saying, you can't learn anything necessarily from being betrayed, but a certain percentage of times you open up, you're just gonna. But it's worth it. The majority of the time,
it costs to doing
open
business
doors.
because exactly.
And thinking about it like a currency, I wrote it down like it'd be like the equivalent of like never spending any, like hoarding.
Right.
All your money,
Not living, not investing.
Like, well, I've never been betrayed in my life because I've never trusted anyone.
Yeah,
like,
and
is that a win?
Yeah, to an extent. Like you hoard some money, but if you put that money into investment, trading, whatever, you'd lose some. But if you did things right, you would make way more money than just hoarding. So you can be a hoarder, and you can be closed off.
Yeah. And you'll never get betrayed in your life.
It's a safe route to take, but
what kind of life?
It's very limited. Yeah, very limited. And that's what I'm thinking about myself. It's like, what is my life? I spend most of my life sitting in my bedroom on a computer.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to be out and about and have
Well, it's the thing, because you will recommend like movies, which I'm like, man, I'd be like want to watch. It's just because we have different lifestyles. I just can't fit that in. Like, it's like.
It brings to mind like quality versus quantity as well. Like, thinking about like money, you can hoard it all your trust and never get betrayed, and you've got a lot of quantity of, if you think about it like that way, but you don't have a quality. You don't have all these experiences. Even if I got betrayed and those neighbours took advantage of me somehow and shanked me up in the car when we'd live in the TV, or now they know where we live and that we're nice people that they can come snoop around the back and steal from us. It's like, it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. It would have sucked. It would have definitely added some flavour to my life.
Yeah.
Not great flavour, but it's a story at least. But it didn't, and it turned out fine.
I think and
I feel good.
I think we've probably all heard the story of the good old days, and I think it's overblown because it probably wasn't like widespread, but we've all heard about like people used to never lock their door because they felt so safe, and their neighbours could just come and go as they please, and everyone. I think it's more like a rural thing, but we've all sort of heard that story, right? Open door policy, the door's never locked, you can come over whenever. I think that's a real shame that's not more of a thing. Not necessarily I like the door unlocked, but that you can just pop over whenever you want for no specific reason, just to chill out.
It's a firm no for me. That's just my boundary. It's
fair
like
enough.
I just don't like
that's fair enough.
Unexpected.
Yeah.
If you're happy walking in and seeing my naked penis, because I'm sometimes naked, then it's on you.
It's something that, when I have my own house, I think I will have an open door policy. I know it sounds weird, but I say I'm changing. I'm becoming less reserved. I want more connections. And I often think like, geez, I wish I could just like pop over here sometimes unannounced. I don't know how you feel about it, but I wish I had those connections where I could just come. Mine's
not to say I'm like, no, don't show up. It's like,
just text
me like, hey, can I like pop over? I'll be like, not just like, it's I hate when things change. Like, I love routine. And so it throws me out. It's like, oh crap, someone's like here now. I've got to like entertain them or sort of thing.
You're right, and I know that feeling when it throws me out of my routine. But then I'm like, geez, this is so much more fun than my routine. It's like because it'll be like when I'm watching like the stock market, watching the betting market, and I'm just like sitting there, and it's like I'm hawking because that's what I do. I was like, wait until I pounce like a lion, waiting. And so then if I go out and do something like yesterday, it breaks it up. I'm no longer hawking, and it's like, and then you come back and like, shit, what have I missed out on? But then it's like, shit, this is actually so much more fun than just sitting in front of the computer all day.
Yeah.
So it does break routine, but I don't mind that. I want more of that.
Moderation.
I think, what you said about like not liking your, like, how do you word it? Consistency, like interrupted. You don't want your scheduling interrupted.
Or
I feel
routine,
like, where, especially in like first world modern societies, Western societies, like very regimented, like rigid, and all through the schooling system, like teaches us to be regimented and know what to expect at every time of the day. And I think being open is it's like question marks, and it's like intuitively it's scary for us.
I think it's also
anything could happen.
But for me, it's also like it's like a mutual respect thing. It's like I don't know, maybe that's just a dumb way to look at it, but it's like to realize that person's time might be very important to them. Like, I wouldn't just want to show up and ruin that. Like, for my sister, when she had a baby, it was a thing where my mum would just pop over to hers with good intentions to like drop off some food or nappies and stuff, and for her, she felt like she couldn't say like no So you're just showing up when I'm trying to like settle the baby, or those things like that. But then it came with a cost, because then my mum was actually trying to like help and provide in that sense. So like I told my mum when we moved, it's like it's not like I don't like you coming over, and like you're more than welcome, but I just prefer like a heads up, or like give me a call first, because then I'm more open to the like fact that they're coming over, and the conversation will be chill. Whereas like if they show up randomly, I'm like, oh man, that's like, it could be frustrating, and then I just become jaded and like I don't.
I guess everyone's different.
Maybe just recognizing how I am. I guess
I often
reasonable
enjoy spontaneous things, because if I have to think about something, I often like talk myself out of doing it. Like, so whereas someone just pops up. So I remember occasionally we used to have those spontaneous nights where we would go into town, and those were always the best nights because it wasn't planned.
Yeah.
And that's if I thought about it, should we go out to town on Friday night? I'm like, I'll talk myself out of it. Whereas if you just like, bam, should we go to town?
Yeah, I think actually there's opportunity. I think maybe it's just the fact that being like knowing when I'd go over to your house was like, oh yeah, there's a question mark on the night, like I've got time. Yeah. But now it's like, nah, I've got things I need to do.
That's fair. And so I'm coming from I'm single. I work for myself. I have a lot of time. So yeah, everyone's different. You're married. You have a full-time job. Yeah. So everyone's circumstances are different. But yeah, I love the idea of
spontaneity,
especially like party, like someone rock up. Should we get fucked up? Like that'd be so sick. I wish that. I want that in my life. Yeah. Like I've got a bag. You want to get ripped? Hell yes. Like, that'd be so sick. That's my dream life. Yeah. So it's coming.
You need to live in a city, eh?
Yeah, so that's what I mean. If I get a pad in the CBD, like
a pad,
shit, man. I feel like I can live this life I want to live. And and as I say,
don't know, you might find a lady and that might completely change.
I'm more open to that. So after watching that movie, 10 Things I Hate About You, like that evoked that emotional relationship side of me that I thought died.
Cool.
Until it died after high school, but then like shit, actually. Like just
No, there was always
I doubt it
was
an
ember there.
Reignited. Exactly. Yeah.
Nah. Oh, maybe we'll wrap it up there.
Cool.
Any takeaways from being vulnerable, opening yourself
as an adult,
or closing off?
Yeah, as an adult, my one is food is OP. If you're like unsure, especially neighbours, food is. No one hates food, and if they don't like that food, they'll re-gift it to someone else. It's just like getting your foot in the door.
Well, it was a weird thing when you come over. You just, I've got a garlic for you, and we give you tomatoes. It's like that's just weird.
It's
like,
nice. Well,
it's nice.
It also fosters that. It makes you feel safe. Like as a community, you go. I'm like, if your food's secure, then I like to think like apocalyptic sometimes. As I'm sure we all do, and you go, it's all right. Like we can trade like with like because we've built that trust with the neighbours. We could grid it out.
Our feijoa tree's starting to have some harvest. Could always bring some feijoas over.
Yep, feijoas for pumpkins. It just feels good.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Food is a very good example.
Yeah, I think food or any like sort of gift if you're coming with something, is that it could be alcohol, drugs, anything.
Maybe start with food.
No, well, alcohol in New Zealand's another good one. If you come over for a 12-pack, like
that's a drug that everyone is welcome to.
Exactly, and as I say, alcohol shouldn't become a crutch, but it can be a good icebreaker. But any sort of like gift, if you come with some sort of offering, people are going to be probably very receptive.
Mm-hmm.
So
and I think the other good point that you mentioned is it's probably worth it. That to be open, to be more open, tend towards more openness. Yeah, you're gonna get inevitably screwed every now and again, but that adds flavour to your life.
Yeah,
it adds stories.
I want because my life desperately lacks spice, so I want spice. Because as I say, I made my
bring
life
some
very
Indian food next time.
I made a very small life for myself. A very got rid of my car. I don't have my own car. I just spend most of my time in my bedroom. I made my, and I thought, and I thought I wanted that, and I did want that life for a while, and I was very concentrated on making money. And it's like now I've got a bit of money. Actually,
how do I spend it?
And I want connections. I'm like, I made my world very small. So yeah,
cool. You Nev?
I think it's good to have like, things out of your, things out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, that's another good one.
It's like. new experiences. Like, don't close yourself off to something just because you've never done it before. You might think it's lame. Like,
Yeah,
you
like
just
going to
never know, it
Lake
could be fun.
Pearson.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
like
yeah,
I was so hesitant because that's what I
You
when
were.
I have time to think about things, I start and I'm thinking, all these stupid things like how will I sleep in a tent like with other people, and
just wing it for one night.
and then I'll keep talking myself out of it, but I'm getting good at being like, no, I just have to do it.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
it
so
was
fun.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you opened us off. Do you want to close us off then?
All right.
Peace.
Thanks for listening. Episode 31 in the bag.
All right.
Vulnerability.
See you next
Be
time.
vulnerable,
Peace.
pussies.
Peace.
Yeah, definitely.